All right, welcome everybody. Tonight we have a presentation on sleep and all the wonderful things it does for our body and our health. My name is Annie Watts. I'm an applied functional medicine coach, as well as a licensed massage therapist. I live in Kennebunk, Maine. And if you don't know what functional medicine does, it strives to get at the root cause of all disease. So I work with clients all around, helping them get to the root causes of why they don't feel well. So that's a little blurb on me. I put my email and my phone number in the chat tab as well. So sleep. I think that when I started at the Applied School of Functional Medicine, studying all of this, this was probably the most unexpected thing that I learned, that how important they value sleep above nutrition, above many things. Sleep affects our whole body. It affects all the systems of our body. It affects our health in so many ways. Without sleep, we can't function and we can't be healthy and we can't thrive. We can survive, but we cannot thrive. So getting a really deep restorative 7 to 8 hours of sleep each night is, should be a goal for all of us. Is definitely a goal for me. So it's actually over 50%, but 50% of Americans report having bad sleep. It is a very big problem in our country. So why is sleep so important? So we know our culture is like, right, we're go, go, go. We're always on the move. We're working. We're drinking coffee, we're trying to fit things in, we're driving our cars, paying our bills on our cell phones, just doing. And we have a very sympathetic nervous system type of life. And what I mean by that, if you were at my stress talk 2 weeks ago, we have our sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight and the stress, or we have the parasympathetic. Well, most of us are living very parasympathetic lives and expecting a parasympathetic result, if that makes any sense. So why is sleep so important? It is our reset button. It's when our bodies just relax and heal, the tissues heal, they rejuvenate, everything gets totally relaxed and your body can take over and its wisdom to heal yourself. The pineal gland that is in your brain secretes melatonin. Our nervous system, which we just talked about, rest and digest, kicks in. It's the opposite of the sympathetic fight and flight. It's when our digestion, peristalsis, and everything else kicks in. We detoxify our brains and we process thoughts in our sleep. It is when most of the growth hormone that we need for growing and cell generation is secreted. Sleep actually resets our insulin and glucose pathways, which is very, very important. And at night is when we put out the highest level of glutathione. And if no one knows what glutathione is, it is our most wonderful antioxidant that we have in our body. It fights free radicals. It is like a superstar. So when we don't get enough sleep, what do? People drink coffee, lots of coffee, more coffee, soda, a handful of M&Ms, a handful of sugar, and very upsettingly Red Bull and those other energy drinks, which are actually quite dangerous. So this is what the typical American will turn to when they're tired or they don't get a good night's sleep. So the different sleep issues usually fall into two categories, sort of three. One, people have trouble falling asleep. They just can't get to sleep. Two, they have trouble staying asleep. So they'll wake up during the night, in the middle of the night, several times, and then maybe can't get back to sleep. And then the third is people that sleep, but then they wake up around 3:30, 4 o'clock, wide awake, ready for the day. So the falling asleep one, what I just shared, if we are going through our life and we have physiological and mental and other stressors on us, if we're going, rushing, we have stress in our marriage, stress in our job, stress in other parts of our life, that puts us into this sympathetic nervous system mode. Now, our body doesn't know the difference between those types of stressors and let's say getting chased by a lion back in the prehistoric days. It literally doesn't know the difference. It just knows that you're under stress and you're signaling to your body that you need to be alert and you need to be on top of things. And so we go, 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 go. We do things right up on our cell phone, and then we put our head on the pillow and we wonder why we can't fall asleep, because we are living that sympathetic life expecting a parasympathetic result. So sleep hygiene. So sleep hygiene is something, it's a term that we use in functional medicine. You've probably heard of it before. One is to create a bedtime ritual. So these are all things that we're going to talk about in this presentation, but I'm just going to go through them quickly. But just creating some kind of a ritual around bedtime, knowing that an hour or two before you go to bed, you know, if you're really trying to work on this, have a routine. Maybe it's staying off all your devices. Maybe it's taking a hot bath, but I'll go through these for you. So one would be limit screen time within an hour of going to sleep. I know this is really hard. If you have a phone, you can download a blue filter on your phone from the App Store. Some phones have them already. You also can go on to Amazon and buy their blue filter glasses. They're like $20. And you can put those on starting around 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon if you're on your computer or watching TV, because it's that blue light that sucks our melatonin out of us, you know, just depletes our melatonin supply. And it's so hard to go to sleep. So limit alcohol, you know, try to have herbal or chamomile tea instead. Alcohol, actually, I'll talk about a little later of what it does, but it triggers GABA, which is GABA, which is, it relaxes you, it makes you feel mellow and relaxed, but then a few hours later, we get glutamate, which is the antithesis of GABA, and glutamate is a stimulant, and glutamate then will make us wake up. So alcohol, people think, oh, I'm gonna have a glass of wine, and they feel sleepy, and then a few hours in, they wake up, or they are restless. So limit caffeinated beverages. So it's really thought to say, not if you have trouble falling asleep. Now, my husband can have a cup of caffeine coffee at 8 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock at night and eat a bowl of ice cream and then go to bed. He's like snoring within 2 minutes. Most people can't do that. So if you are not able to fall asleep easily, it is really suggested that they say noon, but I was being generous today. So after 1 o'clock, you really shouldn't have no caffeine, no soda, nothing like that. Try herbal teas, or if you need to have the taste of coffee, perhaps decaf coffee. If you're tired in the afternoon, I learned that a big glass of water, just plain water, really helps you, because sometimes it's the dehydration that makes us tired, and that will really give you a little lift. So limit snacking after dinner, no refined carbs or sugar at night, and we'll talk about that later. Keep the temperature in your room cool. So this is another thing you can do, is listen to a meditation or relaxing music when you're getting ready for bed, when you're in bed. Get regular exercise during the day. That exertion will help wear you out a little bit and make it easier for you to fall asleep. You know about taking the good old evening constitutional, right? Taking an evening walk, breathing in some good oxygen is really good for helping you fall asleep. Keeping a journal near your bed. This is just for a busy mind, and we'll talk about that, but it's nice to be able to jot things down out of your head. And there's that ritual again. All right, and this is what I do. I read my book, and I also have Audible. So sometimes I like to be read to, and it helps me fall asleep. So I'll even read one book, and then when I start to get tired, but not tired enough, I'll put my Audible in my headphones, and I have another book that I'm listening to. And they even have bedtime stories that you can choose on Audible that are specifically meant to lull you to sleep. And they also have meditations that you can listen to that are meant to lull you to sleep. And another thing would be to put lavender like on a tissue, like lavender essential oil on a piece of tissue and put the tissue in your pillowcase, or if you have a diffuser, you can use that and just make sure it's organic, high quality essential oil because the other ones are toxic. All right, top reasons people have trouble falling asleep. This guy definitely looks like he's having trouble. So the first one is pain. A lot of people have trouble falling asleep if they have some kind of chronic pain in their bodies. This can make it hard to fall asleep. A hot bath or some topical ointments like Tiger Balm can really ease the pain. The next, and the big one is stress, right? We all know about stress of daily life, worries about finances, marital problems, whatever you can think of. And maybe COVID-19 perhaps is affecting a lot of people's stress right now. All of these stressors elevate our cortisol, and therefore the cortisol inhibits our ability to synthesize melatonin, and melatonin regulates our sleep rhythms. So for melatonin to be optimally secreted, we need to have that GABA that we spoke about before. And when you have emotional stress or physiological stress, it creates the antithesis of GABA, which is the glutamate, which we already talked about. So if you have all these stressors, you have all this glutamate, and so therefore you don't have the GABA, and the GABA is what we need to synthesize the melatonin. So I know that you don't have to remember all that busy stuff, but just know that stress affects us chemically in that way. So a busy mind, you know, people sometimes wake up with a busy mind in the middle of the night, or they have a busy mind when they're going to bed. And it's been suggested to keep a journal next to your bed, and you can just sort of empty out that to-do list that's running through your head. I don't want to forget that. Oh my gosh, I need to go and buy this. I need to go order this. Anything that's in your mind, just jot it down and get it out of your brain. There was a woman, I used to go on these retreats, and this woman's Sister Maurice, she was hysterical. Anyway, she was a nun from the Bronx, but she would tell us that how she slept at night is that she would go into her bedroom, and she thought this was funny because she was a nun, and she'd open the door and she'd go into her bedroom, and then she would say, okay, God, I'd like you to take anything and everything that doesn't belong in this bed with me out of my bedroom, and I will pick it up in the morning so I can have a good night's sleep. And she would just ask everything, you know, like leaving it in the bucket outside the door, and I'll be back for it later, something like that, which is pretty funny. And the other one is the poor circadian rhythm. So our circadian rhythm is kept balanced by getting out in the beautiful daylight and the sunshine every day. So the light triggers it, and then the evening triggers it. It's a beautiful rhythm, and it's when the seasons get shorter and it gets darker earlier. You know how tired you get. I just look at my husband at like 6:30. I'm like, oh my God, it's only 6:30, but we want to go to bed. And in the olden days, you know, people followed that rhythm much more. They ate when there was still daylight, and they went to bed much earlier during those months. And it's the natural rhythm of our body. So anyway, if you have that rhythm thrown off for many different reasons, that can really affect your melatonin and your ability to get to sleep. All right, so reasons that people don't stay asleep. All right, physical disturbances. So this can be so many things. This could be your spouse snoring next to you. So earplugs really work for that. The kind that they give you at an MRI are really nice because they're very squishy and they fit inside your ears nicely and they don't fall out and they're comfortable. They work super well. Some people might even need to move to another room. The temperature could be too high. That's a physical disturbance. This will wake people up. This wakes me up during the night if it's too high. Having pets in our room, jumping on the bed, jumping off the bed, trying to get in your door. Also, I know for me and for a lot of people I know, it's too quiet. So we need some white noise. So we have a fan blowing at night and we have crickets on my little sound machine. So we have crickets going, we've got the fan going, and that helps me drown out the snoring next to me. I also snore, though, I'll be very honest. He'll tell me that I snore worse than he does. But you can download all kinds of nature sounds on your phone or use a sound machine or anything like that to help you. Hormone shifts. Okay, so hormone shifts, the most common of this being blood sugar. So most Americans, people don't realize this, but we're at an epic level of diabetes in America. And the people that aren't diabetic, there's huge amount of Americans that are at the early and mid stages of insulin resistance, which is what is pre-diabetes. And you can be insulin resistant and still have very good, healthy fasting blood sugar. So they are thinking the majority of American adults and even children are at early stage of insulin resistance. So because of this, the blood sugar can be driven way down at night, and we will get this cortisol kick during the night. But if the blood sugar really, if the drop is really severe, we'll get a huge surge of insulin, which will definitely wake us up. So the insulin surges in because your blood sugar drops so low, and there we are, now we're awake. So what could help this is you could have a low glycemic dinner, a smaller dinner, have your larger meal at lunch. Try to eat 3 hours before you plan on going to bed. And for people that have very more severe blood sugar problems, even a small apple with some nuts right before bed can help regulate your blood sugar. All right. The need to urinate. Well, the need to urinate. That happens with men and women for different reasons. I know that with women, it is more of a, I lost my place in my notes here, guys, sorry. Well, I can just speak from what I know. Women have trouble with low cortisol and their adrenal glands not being able to regulate the cortisol, and that just increases our need to urinate. Also, if you drink water or liquids right up until bedtime, that is also going to increase your need to urinate. With men, it's more to do with their prostate that causes them to have to urinate. And let me see. Oh, also with the women, the oxidative stress, which comes from high blood sugar, which believe it or not, so we're talking about the blood sugar, that can cause incontinence with women. So when you have high blood sugar, from this insulin resistance, if that's something that you're dealing with and you may not even know it, it can lead to incontinence because oxidative stress goes to your sphincter muscle, the soft tissues in your body, and you lose control. Yeah, so men is the prostate, but also men can have estrogen dominance. I don't know if you know what estrogen dominance is, but you have receptors on your cells for estrogen. But if they get taken up by other things, which in this case would be xenoestrogens or estrogen mimickers that are in our healthcare products, they're in pesticides, herbicides, things like that. Those, if men are exposed to xenoestrogens in their life, those receptors will be taken up by those xenoestrogens, and then you have normal estrogen now floating around your body where it shouldn't be. And that's what estrogen dominance is for men and women. But for men, this is definitely a cause for them to have to get up and urinate. Also, men who have insulin resistance and have high insulin levels, actually the high insulin levels promotes the conversion of their testosterone to estrogen, which is really not good for men. This leads to a hormone called DHT, which then again affects your prostate. So this becomes a problem. Mine definitely is from drinking. I have a little mantra now, 64 before 4. So I drink my 64 ounces of water before 4 o'clock. So allergens in the room, this is definitely an issue. So allergens could be, right, your pets, dust, toxins, or mold. If you are allergic to your pet, people, don't sleep with your pets in your room. I know it's so hard, but if you're allergic, this will be the worst thing you can do. Pollen and dust, I mean, if you are allergic to those things, I would highly suggest getting a good HEPA air filter for your bedroom, and this really could make a huge difference for you. And I don't know that mold's a huge issue with everybody, but people have been surprised during testing to discover that they have been exposed to mold. So just keeping your room clean, keeping fresh air, keeping an air filter in, and keeping your pets out of the room. And we've already talked about this already, but living a sympathetic nervous system life all day, and that's why we can't fall asleep, but also if that's our way of life, we're never going to sleep really deeply because your body, your brain thinks you're in fight or flight mode, and it doesn't know when that attack on the cave is going to happen and you're going to have to flee to safety, right? So it's not going to let you go into a deep sleep, that level of cortisol. You're going to be sleeping lightly. Every noise you hear, everything that disturbs you in your room, you're going to wake up because you're sleeping in a hyper aware state versus a nice deep calm state. So, okay. This is more reasons that we wake up. So insufficient melatonin. Lots of reasons that we can be insufficient in melatonin. So melatonin is a hormone, and it's made in your body through a cascade of hormones, beginning with tryptophan. And you've all heard of that because that's what they say is in Turkey, which makes us all fall asleep. But tryptophan and all of the hormones need certain cofactors in order to synthesize melatonin. And that's folate, niacin, and especially B6. So tryptophan becomes serotonin in your body, which then becomes melatonin. So we need ample amounts of the niacin and the folate and the B6, especially the B6. It's the active form of B6, which is called pyridoxal phosphate, also known as P5P. And we need riboflavin to actually make this form of active B6. So all these, so it could be just that you don't have sufficient B6 in your body or sufficient folate, and that's why you're not getting this wonderful cascade of hormones. It could be as simple as that. So studies have shown that you can struggle synthesizing this form of B6 due to genetic reasons, and this was fascinating to me. Families that have problems of alcoholism and addiction that run through generations, when they're tested with their blood, are shown to have a definite problem synthesizing this active form of B6. So you can actually supplement with the P5P active B6 form versus a normal B, and that will help you if you are in this category of people. Also people who are on like SSRIs, which are serotonin, inhibitors for depression. So this will long-term actually deplete your serotonin levels, which will also lead to sleep challenges. And there's a study that we read in school that said over 75% of people with depression have reported having sleep issues. So it's all connected, all connected. And then that pineal gland that we mentioned before, it's a little teeny rice, like the size of a piece of rice up in your brain. It's a gland in your brain, and it produces and regulates a few different hormones, but one of them being melatonin. So women, this is especially a problem with women, and it's not as much as it used to be, the supplementation with calcium, but 10 years ago, if you were over 50, you were being told to take a lot of extra calcium pills, and I think a lot of women still are. We in functional medicine world do not recommend anyone supplementing with calcium, but that's a whole nother conversation. But women who supplement with calcium will eventually find, especially large doses, may find calcification of their soft tissues. So this could be your arteries, and it definitely could be your pineal gland. So this wouldn't happen if you're eating calcium-rich foods. But if you're taking lots of calcium and you're not taking K2, vitamin K2 along with it, which is what is needed for it to be taken up into your cells and your bones, all of a sudden you get all this calcium just running rogue in your body. And especially it'll go where there's any oxidative damage. So we end up with this pineal gland in our head, in our brain, that is meant to secrete melatonin and help us relax. It becomes calcified. And they wonder why, older people on calcium supplements have trouble falling asleep. Well, that's what happens. Very common. Cortisol awakening response. This is very interesting. I never knew about this. So this is what happens when you wake up around 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the day and you're wide awake. The number one reason for this is stress. So as we've already discussed, cortisol suppresses your melatonin. They're opposite in your body. We have cortisol for when we're supposed to be awake, melatonin for when we're supposed to be at rest. So your melatonin supply just runs out and you're wide awake. This is just from a stressful life. You have that rhythm off. So if you are working with someone and trying to do all the different things in your life to get that cortisol rhythm back into place, in the meantime, if you wake up and it's 4 o'clock, you can try some of those really nice deep box breathing exercises that we discussed the last time with the stress. And that'll be in the handout, but it's basically breathing in through your nose, 4 counts, holding for 5 counts, and then breathing out for 5 counts, and doing that several times. There's also 2 supplements that are very benign. One is L-theanine, and another one is holy basil. And these are 2 supplements that at 3:30 in the morning, you could just pop those right in your mouth, and they would just calm you and relax you. L-theanine is given to children. It's a great anti-anxiety herb and other things. So this will all be in that handout that I'll give you. And also there's a substance called 5-HTP and also tryptophan. Those 2 things can be taken before you go to bed that would help with this waking up early from this cortisol response. Melatonin too. I mean, as a regular normal thing, day in and day out, we don't want to be taking, sleep aids. They're not good for us, just like really no medication or over-the-counter drug long-term is healthy for us. But, if you need to do it to get through a time when you're trying to transition into better sleep habits, you can definitely take these things, but actually melatonin long-term can actually be harmful. So your pancreas has receptors. So think of receptors as catcher's mitts. I didn't really explain what receptors were before, but they're on the cells. And it's like a plug going into a socket. The pancreas has receptors for melatonin. But if you use melatonin ongoing, just like in the other example with insulin, here the melatonin, you have all this melatonin, so it's going to take up all those receptor spaces, right? And what's going to happen, it's going to lead to insulin resistance because it suppresses the absorption of insulin. And that's what will happen long term, if you just take a lot of melatonin. So it's thought that like 3 micrograms, not milligrams, but 3 micrograms should be ample. So someone that takes 4 milligrams of melatonin every night is putting 50 times the normal level of melatonin into their bodies. That's quite a lot. So this is a little bit about the COVID. So, a month or so into COVID, we got wind, anyway, the functional medicine world, and then now it's more, you can go on Google and find this story, but melatonin is thought to be very helpful with the downward cascade of inflammation that happens with COVID-19. So everyone knows by now that COVID-19 isn't what kills you, it's that it causes your immune system to kick in, and if you are someone that has a compromised immune system, or that you are on immunosuppressants or are not well, it's a very rapidly multiplying virus, and inflammation, and a cascade of inflammation is what happens with a lot of these people that you read about, the cytokine storm and all that stuff. And so people have been finding that the melatonin is shown to help with this whole cascade of inflammation. It's a critical immune regulator. It helps with so many things, but the woman who runs our school, she's taking 3 milligrams of melatonin every day. just during this time with this virus because of what they have found out. So the virus finds its way into our bodies and we catch it through many receptors, but ACE2 receptor being one of them. So we have ACE2 receptors in our lungs. People who smoke, people that live around air pollution will have more ACE2 receptors than others, more catcher's mitts to catch that COVID virus, and therefore a more, adverse immune response to COVID. So if you want that study, definitely put your name when you go to that MailChimp page that I put at the end there. I also put it in the chat box, and I will mail that study. I'll put the different studies on the page with my handout. So other reasons we may feel tired after sleep. So we've all heard of sleep apnea. It's an obstruction of our airway. It's more apt, to happen to women after menopause or with overweight people, and definitely as people get older. Just like our muscles atrophy, our esophagus and our airway box and all of that atrophy. And as we fall and put our head back, those actually sag and block the airway. So it's actually an obstruction of the airway. People can't breathe for when they're having an event during the night. It's 10 to 20 seconds at a time where they're not breathing. And it can happen to younger people, even with chronic people that have had chronic tonsillitis. Also people with food sensitivities and allergies such as dairy can make this happen with younger people. And alcohol definitely makes it worse, because when we drink alcohol, we get all relaxed, which relaxes the muscles even more. So definitely, if you have sleep apnea, if you don't know if you have it, if you think you might have it, if you wake up tired every day, but you're sleeping through the night, definitely get tested. I did. I don't have it. I thought I might. But they give you a little device. You wear it on your finger while you sleep, and it gauges your oxygen through the night. And then you bring it back to them, and they read it, and they'll tell you whether you have it or not. And if you do, they give you a machine that you have to sleep with. But sleep apnea leads to a lot of health problems, a lot of, it goes the whole cascade you can imagine. So you're not sleeping well, it actually can lead to cardiac problems and diabetes, but that's another night that we can talk about that. All right. Look at that mouth breather. People who breathe with their mouth open, it's not good to breathe with your mouth open during the day or during the night. Either one isn't good. But at night, definitely. We were meant to breathe with our nose, in and out of our nose while we sleep, not through our mouth. And if we are breathing through our mouth at night, it could be from allergies, it could be from sinus trouble, it could be from a cold, right? Any of those things. But it can lead to gum problems, dental problems, probably spiders. No, just kidding. That's an urban legend. You do not eat spiders in your sleep, so don't worry about that. But it's not good for us. And actually, the exchange of gases doesn't happen as efficiently as it should. And so it actually makes our blood more acidic. It's just not good for us. So there's a thing called mouth taping. You may not have heard of it, but you can buy also on Amazon or other places that you can see that lovely couple there with their mouths taped. So if you're not stuffy and you can breathe through your nose without any blockages, taping your mouth like that can really improve your quality of sleep and is there for your health. It's just really good for you to do. I have not tried that yet because I tend to be a little stuffy, but I'm going to try it as soon as I'm not. So to sort of recap here, poor sleep adversely affects our health. Over time, it definitely increases our incidence of getting disease. It causes hormonal imbalances that lead to weight gain, mood swings, brain fog. Our cortisol level rises, which leads to increased blood sugar, which could then lead to insulin resistance and then could lead to diabetes. It makes us agitated, poorly focused during the day, and cranky. Definitely, because of all of the above, leads to poor immune function, lower glutathione, and all the things that keep us healthy. definitely important for our health. So there is the little link for what you just need to click on that or write it down and go there and put in your email, and I will send you my sleep hygiene handout, and I will give you the studies if you want. And if you also would like to, you have my email, let me know if you would like the YouTube link for either this presentation or the one that we did on stress a few weeks ago.